Thank you, folks. Good morning, and thanks for joining us. And thank you, Floyd and Jim, for the opportunity to speak on a day when we pause to honor those who answer the call when our nation and our communities need them the most. I imagine there's not a person in here who doesn't remember where they were on September 11th, 2001. Almost a decade later, and those images still haunt us. The firefighters rushing to the scene. The radio traffic as they ascended the stairs of those doomed towers. EMTs and policemen, firefighters, their faces soaked in ash and debris as they struggled to rend service and aid to a shocked city. And then there was the aftermath, the endless string of funerals for those who charged into the gates of hell with little regard for their own safety. I often wonder about their last thoughts. Did they think of a son who they'd never see swing a baseball bat? Did they think of a daughter who they would never get to walk down an aisle on their wedding day? And as those volunteers from across the nation flocked to New York to assist in the searches and the seemingly endless cleanup, America called on our men and women in uniform to strike back, to defeat a ghostly enemy and liberate the world from such future terrorist attacks. And as those wars in Afghanistan and Iraq continued, so too did the sacrifice of the men and women who were tasked with that duty. If you've ever seen the movie Taking Chance, you are well aware of how those sacrifices extend beyond the battlefield. They extend to the families, to the friends, and entire communities. America has a long and proud tradition of military service, one that reaches back to Europe in World War I, when their freedom was challenged by an expansionist Germany. Unfortunately, those threats didn't end, and America again had to send its most precious resources, our sons and daughters, to make the world safe for democracy in World War II. And after World War II, we faced a new enemy, communism, and we sent our sons and daughters to stop the expansion in the frozen tundra of Korea and in the jungles and rice paddies of Vietnam. And today, a new generation of patriots have taken over the torch of freedom as they fight Muslim extremists in the mountains of Afghanistan and the cities of Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, more people live in freedom today throughout the world than in any other time in history. And that is because we've had soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines that have answered the call. John F. Kennedy once said that any dangerous situation is tenable if brave men will make it so. Well, my friends, we are honored to be in the presence of such brave men and women. And at this time, I ask that our veterans rise so that we can show them our appreciation. Please rise again. Thank you for your service. Thank you all very much. And if we learned anything from September 11th, it is that we can no longer take our first responders for granted. Ladies and gentlemen, these men are here for us when we need them. So at this time, will the first responder community please stand so we can show you our appreciation. Thank you all for your service and for being there on what for many of us is often our worst possible day. And in closing, I'd just like to share two stories with you. Rather personal, but they illustrate the service and sacrifice that we honor today. As most of you know, last week the city of Jacksonville was hit with a flash flood. It turned out to be the worst day imaginable for the residents of the Rolling Acre Mobile Home Park. And as those waters rose so fast, the residents didn't have time to react. And the radio chatter started. And an off-duty patrolman, the lieutenant, Adam Mefford, responded. He showed up, he was the first one there, and as the floods came in, Adam handed his radio to somebody and said, if I go under, push this button so they'll know where I'm at. He did go under, but he did secure his footing, and he did help those folks get out. That story ended on a high note. Adam saved everybody, and so did the rest of the first responders. But it's important to remember that those folks are there, and you never know when we're going to need them. If you see a policeman or a fireman or an EMT, think of Adam Mefford, think of that story, and thank them for their service. But all these stories don't end so happily. When I was in Iraq, I remember walking from our headquarters, from my hooch to our headquarters, and the ground shook with a violent explosion. And I can remember exchanging a look with a fellow Marine, the look that something bad just happened. And as it turned out, it had. A suicide bomber with explosives laced in his truck tried to run a checkpoint outside Camp Ramadi. And as his young Marines dove for cover, a second lieutenant jumped in the path, opened fire, and stopped that vehicle. He saved his men, he saved the checkpoint, but the vehicle exploded, and that young Marine lost his life. 23 years old, 2 weeks from going home. As we gathered afterward to discuss it, a lieutenant colonel looked at me and said, "Where do we find such men?" My friends, I submit to you that such men and women can be found right here in Central Illinois, in the heart of America, and they sit before us today. As we depart, let us heed Sam's words. Let's make a pact to honor our first responders, our veterans, and those currently serving in uniform. Lincoln once said, how hard it is to die and leave one's country no better than if they had never lived. Today we honor men and women who have no such worry. It is an honor to participate in this celebration of their service and sacrifice. May God bless all of us. May God bless our first responders, our veterans, and our men and women in uniform. Thank you.